Biotechnology, Horticulture, and Research titled Reviewing the State of Organic Agriculture, Producer Perspectives will come to order. I want to say good morning and thank you for joining us as we evaluate the state of organic agriculture from the producer's perspective. In the past 20 years, USDA Organic Seal has grown to become a label that customers actively seek in the grocery aisle. Excuse me. Changing consumer preferences has led to immense growth and development in the organic sector. What was once a small niche market has transformed into a $52 billion industry. Just as we've seen a tremendous growth and development in the organic market, domestic organic producers have evolved as well. Organic farmers and ranchers represent a range of scales and types of agricultural production, as well as diverse range of rural and urban geographic regions. The producers here today are no exception to this diversity. We have producers from Oregon, Maine, California, Texas, and my own home district of the Virgin Islands. They represent a cross-section of the industry covering dairy, commodities, and specialty crops. I'd like to thank you all for being here to share your insights into the industry and for taking time away from your farms. Just like other sectors that experience tremendous growth and change, the organic industry's expansion has its challenges as well. Earlier this year, we held a hearing with Undersecretary Greg Ibach and Dr. Jennifer Tucker to discuss the effectiveness of USDA's National Organic Program. This hearing highlighted efforts to protect the domestic organic supply chain and to support organic farmers and ranchers through USDA programs. During our conversation with Undersecretary Ibach, this subcommittee stressed the importance of maintaining the integrity of the organic industry and for USDA to be attentive to the needs of the industry. Our producers depend on strong consumer confidence and clear standards to ensure the longevity of their business and continued expansion of the organic sector. The National Organic Program is a voluntary public-private partnership between the USDA and producers. As a subcommittee with jurisdiction over NOPE, we have a responsibility to ensure that USDA is fulfilling its commitment to organic producers as a key stakeholder in that partnership. This includes being responsive to the needs of the sector and ensuring producers have access to resources and technical assistance they need to run a successful operation. The 2018 Farm Bill included several provisions to encourage growth and innovation in the organic sector, including increased research funding for the Organic Agriculture Research and Extension Act, and the continued support for the Organic Certification Cost Share Program and the Organic Production and Market Data Initiatives. The Farm Bill also expanded USDA's authority to crack down on bad actors attempting to undermine consumer confidence through fraudulent organic imports. These are all steps in the right direction for the sector, but our work is not done. In a struggling farm economy plagued by uncertain trade conditions, increasing input costs, turbulent weather patterns, and low commodity prices, our farmers and ranchers are looking to thriving markets with high premium, like organic industry, to diversify their operations and increase profits. It is imperative that Congress and USDA continue to work together to support farmers, ranchers, and consumers who seek out the organic seal. Now I'd like to recognize the distinguished ranking member, Dr. Dunn of Florida, for an opening remarks. Any opening remarks he'd like to make?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning to you, and good morning to our panelists. We meet today against a backdrop of tough times in agriculture, whether it is sustained flooding, early winter storms, or market uncertainty. Agricultural producers face unbelievable risks, and for organic farmers, ranchers, and dairymen, that risk is no different. This is one of the reasons I'm proud that we were able to complete the Farm Bill of 2018. I'm proud that it was a historic piece of legislation for the organic sector. We enacted language to address fraudulent imports, including a robust import certification program, providing the National Organic Program with access to cross-border documentation systems that are administered by other federal agencies, and providing a program with additional oversight, certifying agents operating in foreign countries. The Farm Bill also provided a significant increase in funding to the Organic Agricultural Research and Extension Initiative. Finally, I'm glad that we were able to secure report language urging USDA and the National Organic Standards Board to adhere to the best science and technical assistance available when making recommendations. In July, this subcommittee received an update from USDA Undersecretary Greg Ibaugh on the National Organic Program and USDA's status implementing the 2018 Farm Bill. The organic industry can trust that they do have allies in both Undersecretary Ibaugh's and Deputy Administrator Jenny Tucker's offices. They are doing a great job. At that hearing, I described several challenges that I believe threaten the legitimacy of the organic program and, frankly, the industry as a whole. One that I will highlight are some segments of the organic industry who think it is wise to disparage non-organic production practices. The National Organic Program has proven to be a great marketing tool for the ag community, but it is not the only tool. There are several ways that American farmers successfully differentiate their products to meet consumer demand. Furthermore, many of the organic producers also farm using conventional practices. We recognize organic production is an important tool that farmers use to earn a premium for their product, and I know that they, like all farmers, are proud of the product. Finally, I want to thank each of our witnesses for taking your time to be here today. Please know that the time you spent preparing for, traveling to today's hearing, and being away from your families and businesses is not lost on us. We greatly appreciate your commitment to the industry, and by providing this committee with timely information to help us do our jobs, we're very grateful to you for that. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I yield back.
I recognize that Chairman Pierson is here. Thank you for attending this hearing as well. And I now recognize Ranking Member Conway for any opening statements he may have.
No statement, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The chair would request that other members submit their opening statements for the record so the witnesses may begin their testimony and should ensure that there's ample time for questions. I'd like to welcome all of our witnesses and thank you for being here today. At this time, I'd like to introduce our first witness, Mr. Steve Pierson of Organic Valley, CROPP Cooperative, and he's from St. Paul, Oregon. Mr. Pierson is the owner of Sar-Ben Farms, Inc., and is a board director for CROPP Cooperative, Organic Valley. He and his family work together to manage a 900-acre dairy farm, which has been in the organic production since 2005. Mr. Pierson was re-elected to CROPP Cooperative Board of Directors in April 2018 from a 3-year term. Our second witness is Mr. Jeff Huckaby, president of Grimmway Farms of Bakersfield, California. I know that Mr. Cox, who is a member of this committee, is very happy to have you here. Mr. Huckaby is a fourth-generation farmer, excuse me, who was born and raised in California's San Joaquin Valley, where he grew up helping in his grandfather's farm. He joined Grimmway Farms in 1998 and was most recently promoted to president of the company in 2016. Our third witness is Mr. Ben Whalen of Bumbleroot Organic Farm in Windham, Maine. I recognize the gentlewoman from Maine, Ms. Pingree, to introduce Mr. Whalen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for hosting this hearing this morning. Thank you to all of the witnesses. As was said earlier, we know you come from a long ways away, and you're taking a day away from your family and your businesses and your farms, and that's busy, so thank you for doing that. I'm really excited to have Ben Whalen from Bumbleroot Farm in Windham, Maine here. We're always excited to have a Mainer in the room, but particularly happy to have Ben. He's a good representation of the wonderful resurgence of young farmers who are in Maine, coming to Maine, and are there to practice farming sustainably. Bumbleroot Farm is a small organic vegetable and flower farm. They sell directly to consumers at farmers markets through a CSA as well as local restaurants and caterers. Ben and his business partners are not just successful farmers, they are active participants in important conversations happening at the local, state, and federal levels around climate change, around the challenges for young farmers, and about organic agriculture. Ben, we really appreciate you taking time away from the farm and wish you and all of your business partners the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth witness is Ms. Shelli Brin of Ridge to Reef Farm in Frederiksted, St. Croix. She's also working on a project now on St. Thomas. Ms. Brin is a farmer with Ridge to Reef Farm, the only certified organic farm in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Ms. Brin is a multi-generational Virgin Islander who has managed various operations on her farm for 10 years, including production of over 100 varieties of organic fruits and vegetables. I'd also welcome Mr. Jeremy Brown of Broadview Agriculture in Lubbock, Texas. He will be introduced by committee ranking member, Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and Mr. Huckaby. I believe I visited your farm last year. You hosted us, and thank you very much. The carrots are great. Jeremy Brown is a pleasure to introduce him. He's a cotton producer from the great state of Texas, just to irritate Mr. Baird. Mr. Brown farms both organic and conventional cotton, wheat, rye, corn, and grain sorghum. Mr. Brown has a bachelor's degree in agricultural communications from Texas Tech University and currently farms in Dawson County, which is located in the district I get to represent. Not only is Mr. Brown a great representative for agriculture in West Texas, but he also serves as one of the faces of farming and ranching for the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. Mr. Brown, it's a great honor to have you with us today, and I'm looking forward to your testimony. Jeremy, thank you for being here, buddy. Hey, you're back.
Thank you. So we'll now proceed to a hearing from our witnesses. Each of you will have 5 minutes to present the testimony. That's more time than members get on the floor, so use it wisely. When the light turns yellow, that indicates that there's 1 minute left to complete your testimony. Mr. Pierson, please begin when you're ready.
Well, good morning, Chairwoman Stacy Plaskett and other members of the subcommittee. As Ms. Plaskett mentioned earlier, my family and I operate a 900-acre dairy farm near St. Paul, Oregon. We milk 300 cows and care for about 800 total animals on the farm. We became certified organic in 2005 and ship milk with Organic Valley. The farm provides a livelihood for our 4 farm families and 3 generations. I did not come from an agricultural background. In fact, I never even stepped on a dairy farm until I started working on the farm at the University of Florida, where I received a degree. But as a young adult, I saw dairy farming as a profession that would allow me a great place to raise a family and work with my hands and heart. Becoming an organic dairy farmer has amazingly brought those aspirations to a reality for me and the next generation. I also have the privilege of serving on the board of directors of Organic Valley, the largest organic co-op in the world. Organic Valley is established in 1988 and has grown to include nearly 2,000 farmers in 34 states. The majority of the co-op's business is dairy, and we offer an array of products available to tens of thousands of retail locations across the United States and internationally. In addition to dairy, we have a couple of hundred producers that focus on organic eggs, produce, meat, and feedstuffs. Our cooperative has about 900 employees and estimated $104 million in fixed assets and about $1.1 billion in annual sales. Profitability has been hard to obtain on either the farm or the cooperative business side. Margins are thin, and while our pay price remains around $29 a hundredweight, we're practicing a quota system to manage the amount of milk the co-op receives. The challenges in organic dairy, I believe, can be attributed to the following. Changes in consumer preferences to favor more full-fat dairy products have made utilization of farm milk more difficult. Increased milk production and competition has created an imbalance in supply and demand. Trade disputes are causing a lost market opportunity, and there's regulatory uncertainty in the organic standards. A specific challenge must be resolved is inconsistent interpretation of the organic standard for what is called the origin of livestock. This centers around the requirements of farms transitioning dairy cattle to organic. Most farms that come into organic dairy abide by the one-time 12-month transition allowance for a dairy herd. Thereafter, they source only organic-born and organic-raised replacements, and this is the interpretation most certifiers recognize. Yet some certifiers and their dairy clients practice a continuous transition approach which exploits the 12-month allowance, using it multiple times, or instead they source replacement stock from operations that specialize in transitioning conventional animals. When comparing these two approaches, our analysis at Organic Valley reveals at least a $600 cost advantage per replacement animals. A farm my size ends up with a competitive disadvantage of nearly $45,000 per year because of this differential. The USDA needs to fix this problem, and as October 1st, they reopened the comment period for the 2015 Origin of Livestock proposed rule. This proposed rule clarifies dairy transition as a one-time event on a dairy farm associated with a producer. My strong message to the committee members today is to continue demanding that the USDA finalize the Origin of Livestock language in a manner that aligns closely with the proposed rule. Another couple of hot-button issues in organic dairy is ensuring grazing is done and organic feedstuffs from international sources is authentic. I support the Dairy Compliance Project and the strengthening enforcement rulemaking that is approved by and going ahead in the USDA. So what are some of the challenges facing us in the organic dairy marketplace right now, and what am I encouraged about? I know that our organic dairy farmers are committed to the land, their cows, and the cooperative. We already know that organic dairy can provide a positive impact on the environment and climate, and we have been doing regenerative soil health and grazing practices for decades, and these practices are fundamental to our ag system. We in organic have seen scientific third-party studies in organic milk affirming thorough testing that organic milk is a clean and healthy option for consumers and void of pesticides and antibiotic residue. And as far as dairy innovation, we're seeing how new products like Organic Value Ultra, the first organic ultra-filtered milk with twice the protein and half the sugar, are hitting the marketplace. We at Organic Valley have evolved our thinking to recognize that consumers are making a statement about who they are by what's in their grocery carts and homes, and defining themselves by electing to choose organic and Organic Valley products. It's a matter resonating with consumers and having products available for them to purchase. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experiences and thoughts, and I welcome any follow-up questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Huckaby, please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Plaskett, Ranking Member Dunn, and distinguished members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jeff Huckaby, and I'm the president of Grimmway Farms Cal Organic, based in Bakersfield, California. I'm a fourth-generation farmer born and raised in the San Joaquin Valley. I started helping my grandfather at age 11 riding the back of a carrot planter. 42 years later, I oversee the largest carrot company in the world and the largest organic vegetable company in the nation. Our company's organic roots tie back to 1984 when Cal Organic started with a quarter acre of lettuce. Today, we grow over 65 different items on 45,000 acres of prime organically certified ground throughout California, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Georgia, and Florida. We are proud that 100% of our produce is grown in the United States. Brothers Rod and Bob Grimm started with a roadside stand in Anaheim, California, and formed Grimmway Farms in 1969. Moving the operations to Bakersfield in 1981, Grimmway went on to market packaged baby carrots as the fresh produce industry was rapidly changing. Grimmway celebrates its 50th anniversary this year and now grows over 40,000 acres of carrots. In 2001, Grimmway acquired Cal Organic Farms. Their vision was to make certified organic vegetables easily accessible to customers. We are now the sole supplier to Costco for baby carrots, transitioning 100% of their carrots sold in their stores to certified organic. We're proud to be the leading supplier of organic vegetables to most major retailers throughout the nation. Today, we continue to demonstrate that high-quality organic produce can be grown at a large scale while still utilizing best practices in sustainable agriculture, improving soil health, and protecting the land for future generations. In order to become certified organic, the law requires the use of production practices that advance sustainability in agriculture, like crop rotation, cover cropping, and maintaining and improving soil health, conserving biodiversity, and reducing nutrient pollution. A farmer must grow and sustain high yields without the use of most synthetic chemicals and fertilizers. For us, carrots are our biggest crop. We discovered early on that crop rotation was essential when converting to organic land. Carrots are grown in the same soil once every 3 years, and crops grown during the off years are critical. Proper rotation, composting, and cover cropping significantly improved our soil health. As the soil improved, so did our crop quality and tonnage, and today our organic yields routinely outperform our conventional crops. We recently expanded our operation to Georgia and Florida. We started our first organic harvest in this region this week, consisting of over 10 organic items which will help support the Southeast marketplace. This type of growth is necessary to meet growing consumer demand. In the fresh produce category, quality is everything, and consumers are desiring both variety and year-round availability. The USDA organic label is the most highly regulated and transparent food system in the world. Even with the stringent requirements in place to be certified organic, we strive to continuously improve operations to achieve the best possible outcomes. Organic is a voluntary regulatory program for those who choose to meet federal standards and market their products under the USDA organic seal. This label is widely trusted by consumers, with over 82% of households across the U.S. now purchasing organic products. Organic farmers are unique in that they rely on the federal government to develop and maintain strong regulations for the organic sector. In order to maintain a healthy marketplace, organic farmers, businesses, and consumers require a strong federal organic program at USDA. The federal government must move rapidly to implement standards that farmers and the industry recommend through the National Organic Standards Board. The future of organic will depend on the federal government keeping pace with the marketplace. Organic regulations must be meaningful and strong. We need the support of Congress to ensure that USDA not only has the resources to maintain, enforce, and develop organic standards, but also to provide oversight and accountability when the regulatory process fails to move the standards forward. In order to continue to provide choices for consumers and economic opportunities for farmers, the public-private partnership between USDA and the organic industry must continue to grow. Organics is a bright spot in U.S. agriculture, with a tremendous opportunity to change the future of our food system. As consumers become increasingly interested in sustainable food production, nutrition, and quality, organic farming can provide a path forward to improve the state of agriculture in the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. When you're ready to begin.
Good morning, Chairwoman Plaskett, Ranking Member Dunn, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify and share a young farmer's perspective on the state of organic agriculture. I believe it's incredibly important for farmers to be included in the conversation surrounding organic standards, and I appreciate this opportunity to share my experience as a small organic grower. My name is Ben Whalen. I'm 32 years old and have owned and operated Bumbleroot Organic Farm for 5 years with my wife, Melissa, and our business partners, Jeff and Abby Fisher. Bumbleroot is a small organic vegetable and flower farm located in Windham, Maine, just 20 minutes west of Portland, on the edge of suburban development and rural farmland. Agriculture has always been a huge part of Maine's identity, and small organic farms like mine contribute to the strength of Maine's food economy. According to the 2017 agricultural census, there are 7,600 farms in Maine, and nearly two-thirds of them are less than 100 acres. 535 Maine farms are certified organic. Our property is 90 acres of rolling hills, and we grow a diversity of certified organic vegetables, flowers, and herbs on just 7 of those acres. We provide weekly farm shares to 125 families through our CSA program, attend 3 weekly farmers markets, and work closely with 20 restaurants and caterers in the Portland area. We employ 3 full-time staff in addition to the owners and hire 3 part-time workers in the summer months. The growth of our business has been greatly supported by the strength of Maine's organic farming community, as well as numerous federal programs. We participated in Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association's beginning farmer training programs that are directly funded by BFRDP. Every year we're in business, the OCCSP has reimbursed us up to 75% of fees associated with organic certification. And this week, we're waiting for a sunny day to pull plastic on our 5th high tunnel. We've received grants for all these high tunnels through NRCS's EQIP and AMA programs. These tunnels have allowed us to extend our growing season into Maine's cold winter months and provide income for our families and food for our communities year-round. As organic farmers, we believe that soil health is the foundation of our farm and our business. By building healthy soils, we increase biodiversity, grow nutrient-dense crops, decrease erosion, and sequester carbon. The term that's being used more often by our peers is regenerative agriculture. The philosophy and principles of regenerative agriculture ask farmers to take a step beyond simply maintaining sustainable systems and to implement practices that regenerate the land and increase soil health. These practices maximize carbon sequestration while minimizing the loss of that carbon once it's stored in the soil. Many of the practices used in regenerative agriculture are already best practices under national organic standards. Use of cover crops, crop rotation, and compost all highlight the importance of soil fertility. Reducing and eliminating tillage, which disrupts the biodiversity in soil, can help maintain soil carbon once it's stored. Healthier soils yield healthier food, which in turn create healthier communities. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges our farm business will face in the coming decades. Organic and regenerative agriculture must be part of the solution to mitigating and adapting to climate change. Research into how farms can effectively sequester carbon in our soils and how to protect that carbon once it's stored can help build resilient farm businesses and create more sustainable food systems. For this reason, continued investment into organic research programs like OREI and ORG is vital. I represent the next generation of farmers in our country, and without continued and increased support from federal programs, the future of our food system is at risk. One of the major challenges young and beginning farmers are facing is access to affordable farmland. Secure land tenure is fundamental to farm viability. Without secure tenure, farmers are unable to invest in on-farm infrastructure and conservation practices critical to building soil quality, financial equity, and their businesses. We were incredibly lucky to find our Forever Farm through work with Maine Farmland Trust, a farmland protection agency in Maine, but we've seen many of our peers close their farm businesses because they were unable to find affordable farmland. With the ever-increasing cost of land, competition from development, and many farmers reaching retirement age with no succession plan in place, we need to increase funding for farmland protection through ASAP-AL. According to 2017 agricultural census, between 2012 and 2017, over 146,000 acres of farmland were lost in Maine alone. Greater farmland protection, coupled with transitioning farm businesses towards organic and regenerative practices, will allow our agriculture industry to lead the way in combating climate change while providing the healthiest possible food for our communities. The future of food in our country has to include more organic farms, and we need the government's support. By incentivizing growers to transition to organic and regenerative practices, we can build more vibrant, resilient food systems in our local communities and our country as a whole. Once again, I would like to thank the subcommittee for giving me the opportunity to testify today on the state of organic agriculture. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony and the information. Now turn to Ms. Brin. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Plaskett, Ranking Member Dunn, members of this Ag Subcommittee. I'm here today to share my experiences, Shelli, Brin, and that of Dr. Nate Olives of Ridge to Reef Farm, our farmer perspectives on the organic industry in the USVI. It's truly an honor to be here now before you in our nation's capital, adding our voices to the many who see a brighter future for our country through regenerative forms of organic agriculture. In order to ensure a future of a healthy, local food system, now more than ever, we need your support. Ridge to Reef Farm is located in Frederiksted, St. Croix. We're the only USDA-certified organic farm in the USVI. Over the past decade, Dr. Olive and I have maintained a diverse planting system of over 100 varieties of organic fruits and vegetables across 150 acres. We raise animals and have created several forms of farmers markets and farm events over the years. Our mission is to help reverse the food trend of food import dependency, which is greater than 98% in the VI, which, despite our efforts, remain the same. We've experienced an increase in emerging threats that hamper our organic operation in many forms and blocks to others interested in entering the organic market. Here are just a few insights into our farm's challenges. Please see my written testimony as it goes into detail. In the VI, we are very susceptible to the mislabeling of produce as organic, domestically produced and imported. While on the mainland, U.S. organic producers can benefit from the organic label, we have experienced no price added value benefits different from other non-organic producers. The Farm Bill of 2018 has given the National Organic Program, NOP, additional authority to protect the integrity of the organic label, and so we need NOP to include our territory in its research and its reach. With no enforcement of the USDA organic marketing rules and without public and farms knowing set standards of organic practices, they have no way of knowing if they're consuming or growing organic. We do believe farmers of different methods all need to work together to enhance our food security, such as in our Farm to School Hub. Yet the integrity of the certified organic production that we are a part of needs protection for it to be worth maintaining and increasing on a wider scale. Due to our geographic location, we are challenged in our ability to get certified and remain. Our expenses are disproportionately higher compared to others. Plus, we have very high expenses getting access to OMRI materials, which greatly limit organic production for us and for others. in just 10 years of working our soils. Dr. Olive and I have farmed through floods, droughts, suffered serious livestock losses, and are dealing with the territorial aftermath of 2 Category 5 hurricanes. And now we're experiencing intense heat waves and an increase in pests and disease, and yet we have had many successes that are worth noting. I ask that you make sure that the USDA includes us and other insular territories in organic research programs and studies. From our perspective as organic producers, here are just 3 of our 6 recommendations we submitted. 1 is encourage more consumer and producer education about the NOP program and organics in general in rural areas, especially including our islands. Number 2, increase the cost share amount proportionately to the higher costs required in insular areas. And 3, relax restrictions on organic materials and supplies that need to be shipped in that are treated differently than if they were being sent to the continental US. As the market demand for local and organic increases, we have a generation of young American farmers such as Nate and myself and others who value the NOP standards and are good stewards of our lands and of our waters. We want to do right by the land that we farm and the communities that we serve. We have entered farming in challenging times in an already high-risk market. I believe with more inclusive organic research, current barriers being removed from organic production and transitions, we can further take our rural communities from living life on the edge of food deserts to food secure. I'd like to thank the subcommittee for giving me the opportunity to testify today before you on our needs as organic growers like us and others in small outlying American communities who are on the front lines of environmental and market changes. And thank you to all the hardworking people in the ag committees and subcommittees and USDAs and the agencies, and to all those who choose to farm today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, please proceed with your testimony.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman Blaskett, Ranking Member Dunn, and members of the committee. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm a farmer, and I love what I do. I get to go out every day and steward God's creation, and I take a lot of pride in that. I don't like to distinguish myself between an organic farmer versus a conventional farmer because I think each one of us go out there and take on a lot of risk to grow a safe food and fiber source for the American people. As Chairman Conaway said, I farm in Dawson County. If you don't know where Dawson County is, it's a desert. The sand likes to blow, and it's flat. It's where you can see your dog run away for 3 days. But it grows really good cotton out there, Conaway. And I'm really proud of the fact that I'm a 4th-generation cotton farmer. I grew up farming with my dad, my granddad, and my great-grandfather. But as Ranking Member Dunn said, the risks that are involved in production agriculture, as everyone knows, my father had to get out of farming when I was a student at Texas Tech University. But I got smart. I married a woman that her dad farmed, and he let me get back to the farm. And so that's where I am today. I currently also serve on the executive committee of Plains Cotton Growers, which is our certified producer organization there on the High Plains. And I'm also a board member of the Texas Organic Cotton Marketing Cooperative. I currently farm about 4,000 acres there, and what happened is when my father-in-law let me take on some land, he had some land that was in the Conservation Reserve Program, which is the CRP. At that time, that land was coming out of contract. This was in 2010, and he encouraged me to look into organics as an opportunity because it could go right into the program. And so in 2010, we took that land and put it into production agriculture, and specifically cotton. And we now grow, out of my 4,000 acres that I farm, I now have about 1,000 of it is certified organic. We've been adding land as we can throughout the years. As I mentioned, organic production can certainly provide producers with market opportunities since production is limited. On average, organic cotton production in the U.S. only makes up about 0.1% of the U.S. crop. However, it's steadily been increasing in production. Because of the limited amount of organic cotton production coupled with demand in niche markets, pricing opportunities for organic production typically are better than conventional. As I said, in 2010, when I first grew my first organic cotton crop, we were able to sell our lint at that time for $1 to $1.30 per pound. As my colleague down the row here that has an organic dairy, we also sell the byproduct of cotton, the cotton seed, to some of the local organic dairies where we get a premium for that seed also. For reference purposes to the committee, cotton, as you know, is marketed very uniquely compared to other row crop commodities. The differentials, also referred to as the loan rate premiums and discounts, are calculated based on market variations and based on how the quality of the cotton is. Organic's just the same. The USDA classes our cotton, and that goes into a pool that we market it to our buyers. And as our climate, we cannot control our weather patterns. Sometimes our quality is better than others. But that our buyers come and they receive bales from the pool containing cotton of the quality specifications they have requested and are charged the price related to that pool. As I said, we started doing this by transitioning land that was in the Conservation Reserve Program, but there's only so much of that. I began to add more land through transition. As you know, it takes 36 months from the time of the last time the chemical was applied to that land to get it certified organic. And however, not all my land is situated for that. When I decide to transition a portion of my farmland to organic production, there are other things that I have to consider. As I said, I farm in West Texas, and we have tough climate. It's a tough place. Sometimes I wonder why we're growing cotton, but it grows well out there. And it does really well for organic cotton. As you might know, most of the organic cotton is grown right there on the Texas High Plains because we have very low insect pressure. We have a kill and freeze that defoliates the cotton naturally before we can harvest it mechanically. And so therefore, it's a great place to grow organic cotton, and I'm glad that I have a part of my business. As I said, thank you for allowing me the opportunity. As I said, I love farming. I consider it my passion, my desire. I feel like we do it safely for the American consumer and beyond. And at this time, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
So thank you to our witnesses. Those very informative and really helpful to the committee, and hearing from you all as to what you're going through in the farming area. Members will be recognized for questioning in the order of seniority for members who are here at the start of the hearing. After that, members will be recognized in the order of arrival. So I will recognize myself for 5 minutes. My first questions are for you, Ms. Brin. What challenges, could you explain more what challenges you face related to your organic certification due to your geographic distance from the mainland, if any?
Sure. Well, I think actually tomorrow our organic inspector arrives. So we're currently going through this year's process. Because we don't have someone that's in the Virgin Islands, we have to cover their expenses, their airfare, lodging, transport them to and from the farm, as well as go through just the regular certification process. We've changed certifiers. In the beginning, we even got quoted one time, I think, $2,000, or it might have even been $4,000 to bring someone to do the process. Luckily, Nate is very good at working out logistics, and he was able to find us a company who has an inspector in Puerto Rico now. So now we're able to get someone from there. But yeah, just the transportation of bringing them over here. The USDA cost share program is $750, which is okay. But we definitely would need something. We would need the USDA to look at improving that program.
So, I mean, if the
Yeah.
person were driving, the 750 would be helpful, but if the person has to fly and then stay overnight before you can get another flight back, how often does a certifier or an inspector have to come?
Once a year.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, as the only certified organic farmer in the Virgin Islands, do you believe that USDA is responsive to your needs? If not, how could they be more responsive?
They could be more responsive in a couple ways. And we did submit some recommendations that will definitely help make it easier for us as well as for others to do the process. But the USDA does have some challenges with reaching us. For one example, as I mentioned earlier in the testimony, is that we just don't have any presence of the USDA recognizing, promoting, or even just supporting the existing organic production that we do. We've had so many cases of even our local staff just not having the information, not having accurate information, not having timely information. And so there could definitely be some improvement there. Just having a presence, a better presence for organic farming.
Thank you. I wanted to turn to you, Mr. Pierson. I know that you have been waiting for the proposed origin of livestock rule, a final ruling on that. How important is that to the organic dairy sector?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's critical to the organic dairy sector. It's going to be difficult for me to overstate this. I have the opportunity to travel around the country for regional meetings for the co-op, and I get the opportunity to meet with hundreds of dairy farmers every year, and every one of them, 100%, really question me, why in the world can't this be done in an expedited manner? To me, and all the other farmers that I encounter, undervoting this indefensible loophole that's a gross misinterpretation of the spirit and the intent of the organic rule is hard for us to even accept. I mean, several of my colleagues now have talked about how important it is that the organic rule is adhered to, both for the confidence of the consumer and the safety of our industry.
Not having the final rule creates uncertainty in your livestock. How does that affect your company?
Yeah, it definitely creates uncertainty in our operation and in the industry as a whole. It has allowed a very few farmers in the United States, dairy farms in the United States, to have a very significant cost advantage over the rest of us. And that's what's really causing a lot of the problem.
Thank you. Ms. Brin, one other question. We've heard from other researchers about the need for resilience and the research that they're doing to support farmers and to become more resilient in a changing climate. What are the specific challenges that you face? I know that you talked about drought and hurricanes as well as now intense heat. How are you overcoming that?
I think we're still trying to figure it out, honestly. One of the ways that we're trying to grow more resiliently, just in our own production, is we've had the help of a hoop house greenhouse tunnel that has really helped us with being able to grow crops that are more on demand in the market. That's helped, but one of the ways that the USDA and this Ag Committee can help support us in being more resilient is the way that we're responded to during these disasters. It is really common that after a natural disaster, we are given only the option of a loan or a reimbursement program. That is very difficult when a farmer is going through a crisis. I can't tell you how many times we were offered loans after a hurricane. And it's something that I really just want to encourage the USDA to revamp on how they're going to respond to farmers, because we're already dealing with debts, we're already dealing with loss of crops, livestock, assets, just money to get gas to go to the store to buy a few supplies. And so that's one area that we really need to revisit on how we're responding to farmers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I turn to Ms. Hartzler for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you all for being here, for your wonderful testimony. Mr. Brown, first I want to congratulate you on your service as one of the faces of farming and ranching, and I can tell just from your testimony already that, and your passion and love of agriculture, that you're a wonderful person to be a face for agriculture. And I was just wondering, as being, for those who don't know, one of 5 agriculture producers selected to represent the industry by the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. You have traveled the country doing various public appearances, national media interviews, web chats, social media activities, all to educate consumers about farming and ranching. And so I was just wondering if you could briefly tell us about your experience and what one thing surprised you as you visit with consumers.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, first off, it was a great experience. I consider it a huge honor to represent farmers and ranchers. To me, they're the salt of this earth. We go out there and we take on a lot of risk every day, as it was mentioned, with really no guarantees. We can't control the weather and we can't control the markets. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it. But, you know, one of the biggest eye-opening was how much disconnect there is from the consumer to the farm, and also how much misinformation that is out there about production practices. But also one of the things that I was also proud of was, I guess so many times nowadays with social media and the different things, avenues that people have access to, I think a lot of people question the information that they're hearing. They don't know if it's truth or not. And when I would be in front of people talking to them and actually tell them that, no, I am a real farmer, it's like people still have a general respect for us that steward the land. And I was proud of that. I found that most of the time there is a disconnect, but normally you go 2 generations back or 3 generations and, oh, my great-grandfather farmed or my great-grandfather had this, and there's still a love for the land. And so we found that in common. It was just a great experience.
Well, thank you. I'm a lifelong farmer myself, so appreciate you getting out there. And as you farm in West Texas, you likely face pest pressures from bollworm and cotton and sugarcane aphid and grain sorghum, among others. So on your conventional acres, there's biotechnology available that allows you to protect your crop while spraying less insecticide. That same technology is not allowed in your organic production. So what do you do to protect your organic cotton acres from pests?
Yeah, well, where we farm there in West Texas, because of our colder climate, our pest pressure can be quite low. You mentioned the sugarcane aphid. That's one crop right now that I currently will not grow organically because we cannot control that pest. It will devour it within 24 hours, which limits us on crop rotations, as was mentioned. But, we try to do things naturally the most that we can. We try to have a habitat where we promote beneficial insects, whether that's plant pollinator habitats in certain areas. We just do the best job we can. We scout our fields during the year weekly. To this date, since 2010, I've not had an issue where it was going to be devastating to my crop. I mean, we'll have flare-ups from time to time, but most of the time we can manage those and go on down the road. But it is something that we're always looking at and making sure that we just do what we can to attract as many beneficial insects as possible.
Great, thank you. A couple other quick questions. Mr. Huckaby, you talked about your carrot rotation, and I'm sure I've eaten a lot of your carrots. And I really enjoyed your testimony and hearing about all the acres and the crops that you grow. What do you plant on the other years? You say you plant your carrots every 3 years in crop rotation, so just curious.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So yeah, carrots are our biggest crop, and you do grow carrots once every 3rd year in the same soil. So when we started growing organics, we did not have necessarily a rotation crop. So we were working with grains and a few other commodities to try to figure out that rotation. And it wasn't until 2001 when we bought Cal Organic Farms, who came with 30 different items, about 6 different lettuces, broccoli, cauliflower, several brassicas, onions, and a few other things, did we realize the benefit, how rotation from crop to crop benefited the carrots and all the other subsequent crops. So today we actually have 65 different items that we do, everywhere from potatoes and onions to the brassicas to the lettuce crops. We do a lot of greens, radishes, beets, and like I said, it's a full program now. We know that we can't stand alone with carrots. So, I actually say what we do in the off years from the carrots is more important than what we do during the year of the carrots. So we've learned through organic farming that crop rotation, building your soil, having the healthiest soils out there is significantly more important than what we felt originally, and it's what's produced the highest quality. And like I said, we actually get higher yields on a lot of our organic crops than we do conventionally.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Van Drew of New Jersey, you have the next 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I know none of you probably think of New Jersey as an agricultural hub, but a number of metrics, the Garden State ranks near the top of agricultural production with over $1 billion in sales, and about half of that alone comes from my congressional district in South Jersey, according to the last Ag Census. My district in South Jersey ranks as top producer in almost every category with respect to agriculture in the state, including organic farming with over 50 different operations. Organics is a growing industry. Just last year, New Jersey saw a 47% increase in organic farm gate sales. With that being said, and with the obvious growing interest to know what is the food and products we produce and eat, I believe it's necessary to provide the appropriate levels of funding and resources to ensure the needs of organic producers are being met for the future. Mr. Huckaby, I am wondering what opportunities there may be for New Jersey producers in the organic market. We have a very strong production of vegetables, fruits, greenhouses, and nurseries, just to name a few. From your experience, what do you see as the best opportunities in the future in the organic market going forward?
All right, well, thank you. So when you look at our production in California, we're able to produce 365 days out of the year, but that's not necessarily what all the retailers want. They do want a year-round program, but a lot of the retailers like to capitalize on local markets, and they're interested in food miles, trucking products from California to the East Coast. And so what we have found and what's worked out really well for us is that we back off our production during the summer months when other areas of the country can come into production, so that we're not flooding markets, we're making opportunities for other people, and we work with the retailers. So there's several East Coast retailers that we don't start production until November 1st for them, and then we go through the winter months and then into April, and then we back off, and then we just more supply the local markets and the West Coast, although we still have contracts across the nation. But we've found with our production in Georgia and Florida that there are a lot of opportunities for local regional product, and especially on the organic side, we've got a lot of consumers interested in where their products are coming from. And so I do think there are quite a few opportunities in the Northeast, the Southeast, and other regions.
And just an aside, I should know the geography of California better. All of the natural disasters that are occurring right now, this has been a really tough time for California. Is any of it affecting the growing markets?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where we're at in the Central Valley, besides just a lot of smoky air, we're not having any natural, any issues with getting production out. California is constantly in a drought situation, it appears, and so availability of water is probably the biggest issue that we deal with, having the surplus water to continue to farm in all the different areas. But we deal with earthquakes and big fires and droughts and extreme temperatures all the time, but we don't get the rains that we are finding out that they do in Georgia and Florida, significantly different than where we farm in California. But right now, I don't know that it's impacting too many of the markets, other than, disrupting some of the production due to power being shut off and not being able to produce and cool and run the products.
Okay. Mr. Whalen, in your testimony, you discussed some of the challenges and programs you have dealt with as a young farmer. Could you also explain from your experiences what opportunities there are for young farmers trying to break into the organic industry?
Yeah, thank you. I think there's tremendous opportunity for young farmers in all markets. I think the potential for more localized food systems is tremendous, and a lot of the farms that we've seen, friends of ours that have gone out of business, it's really been a land access issue. It hasn't been an access to market issue. And securing land tenure for young farmers, especially where we are in southern Maine, where land prices are increasing, we're closest to the market for us, which is Portland. Just the availability is decreasing every single year. And with development, the growth of populations around urban areas where the markets primarily are, this access to land there is decreasing. So trying to find ways to protect that land through conservation easements, agricultural easements, and transition it to making it accessible to young farmers.
Do you have a lot of people interested in, I live in a tourism area, a great deal of my land mass is devoted to tourism, and we have the oceans around us. So there's a lot of farm-to-table restaurants that are really popping up. Do you have that same experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Maine is being recognized nationally, Portland specifically, for the food community and the restaurant industry. And the tourist industry in Maine is large. We get an influx every season of tourists to the state, and that has driven a really robust culinary community in Portland, and we directly work with 20 restaurants in town We're working with chefs every week. I'm personally delivering vegetables to them twice a week and interacting with them on what's fresh, what's available, what's coming. And for us, right now we're trying to figure out how we can supply those restaurants in our community longer into the winter months.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's very interesting, the relationship between the organics and the restaurants, and I think that's a real area that we should be looking at and supporting. Mr. Baird, you're next. You up for 5 minutes? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question goes to Mr. Brown. In your testimony, and I appreciate your enthusiasm for agriculture. I share your passion for that industry, and so I just thank you for that, as well as all the others. You're involved in an industry that I think a great deal of. But in your testimony, you mentioned that a farmer, your organic acres as well as your conventional acres, you focused on soil health, nutrient management, and overall good farming practices. So should you give us some examples of the good farming practices that you feel that overlap between your organic and your conventional farming? Because I certainly agree with you that soil health, we fail to recognize sometimes that soil in essence is a living, breathing organism. It takes in oxygen, takes in nutrients, provides that to the plant. So I'd just be curious to what you have found that overlaps between the organic and the conventional.
Yeah, thank you. You know, some of the practices are different. You know, everybody farms in different areas, and I think that's one thing I want to make sure that we understand is that what works in one area sometimes doesn't work in another. Doesn't mean we can't try it and get some common ground there. But in my organic production, we have to till the soil. That's our only form of weed management. For whatever reasons, the weeds come no matter what. And where I farm, and it's a desert, dry climate, the weeds come, and our only two forms of weed management in cotton when you're going across 1,000 acres is tillage or manual removal of the weeds, and that's a labor issue that we have to deal with. From a soil health perspective, in my conventional land, I don't till the land. We use a lot of cover cropping, a lot of rotation, a lot of diversity in trying to build the soil health. I'm passionate about that. That's one of the things I spend most of my time on is how can I improve the soil health both in my organic and my non-organic land. Both of them produce challenges when you're in a dry, arid climate. Take this year, for instance, this has been a rough year for cotton country. It quit raining June the 5th or so in our area and didn't rain until September. In the soil health, one of their 5 pillars is having a living root system at all times, and that makes it quite a challenge when it's not raining. So, you know, we're working on that. I was excited there's a pioneer in regenerative agriculture named Gabe Brown. He was on my farm on Sunday, and Gabe and I spent all day just trying to figure out how we can improve what we're doing because I'm passionate about it. So we're using cover crops, we're using diversity, we're using rotation when we can. However, where I farm, at the end of the day, cotton is the only thing that really grows good where I farm. I wish I could grow other crops, but they just don't net us the income that we need to be sustainable from a business perspective. But we're continuing to grow and learn new things, and I think we have a lot to learn, but yet the soil is the life of our business, and so we've got to take care of it.
Thank you. I have one other question for Mr. Huckaby. I just wanna. It's hard for me to perceive 45,000 acres or 40,000 acres of carrots. How many machines does it take to harvest 40,000? How many tons the acre do you get? And
well, carrots are pretty unique. They're mechanically harvested, so I'll give you analysis. So 40,000 acres of carrots is 10 million pounds of carrots run every day, 6 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. So it's a lot of orange going through our facilities. But one harvester can harvest about 25 tons every 20 minutes, and that requires 2 people, and that's it. So average tonnage is about 37.5 tons per acre. So, very mechanized crop.
So thank you very much. I always try to learn something every day, so I appreciate that.
Mr. Baird, I appreciate that, and we were just talking that we think we need a field hearing to see that.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. Ms. Schreier of Washington State, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. First, thank you to all of you for coming and talking about how committed you are to your land and your work, and I just want to say first that I appreciate it. Second, I thought that question from Mr. Baird was hilarious, and Mr. Huckaby, I thought I would just tell you, and I'm sure this made a huge difference in your profits, that my son and his friends had a competition at school one day at lunch as to who could eat the most carrots, and my son won with 38.
Oh, wow.
Baby carrots. So just to clarify, I had a couple questions. So one is, Mr. Whalen and Mr. Huckaby, you both talked so much about crop rotation, and even that the interspersed years are more important in many ways than the carrot years. And so I wanted to ask a couple questions about that. One is, are there standards out there for crop rotation, whether there's adequate crop rotation, any enforcement? Does that play in at all?
You know, so under organic standards, you're supposed to be cover cropping in the off years to try to build your soils. There's no specific that you have to follow on a crop rotation. You know, we have some crops we grow once every 7 years. Carrots happen to be one every 3, and then it's just what we have done through trial and error that has we find which crops we can follow and which ones that don't work well to follow, and each one seems to benefit the other as we put this program together. And you know, I think that's what has made us successful, is trying to figure out this blend that one crop will benefit the next. And it is what's more important than even some of the fertility programs that we use, is how are you building your soil for not this year, but next year and the following year. That is so important to us. And I agree, I think we should have more eating carrot contest, see how many carrots we can eat.
I'll tell him. And Mr. Whalen, I was thinking about other challenges with crop rotation, because I think we all recognize how important that is for soil health, which is, what are the markets like for the crops that you're rotating out? I mean, you know, potatoes are probably easy, but turnips are probably a little tougher. And so I was wondering what your comments are about that and how maybe the USDA could help.
Yeah, I think there's never enough consumer education that can happen around vegetables. Where we are in Maine, our seasons are short. We rely, especially this time of year, pretty heavily on storage crops like turnips, and I think there's only so many turnips people are willing to eat this time of year, and especially in the winter. But a huge part of what we try to do, because we're able to work directly with our consumers and our customers, is to educate them on what they're eating and the benefits that it brings to the farm. The beauty of a diversified farm is that when somebody comes to pick up, we have our CSA pickup this afternoon on our farm, they're getting a box full of really tasty spinach or lettuce greens. You're getting kale, but with that you're getting turnips or potatoes or kohlrabi, things that folks usually aren't used to cooking at home. So we try to educate all of our consumers on ways to do that, including the chefs that we work with in town. Try to say, this is what we have, this is what we're growing, we like to grow it. It's really easy to grow for us, it's great for the soil. Is there a way that you can incorporate this into what you're doing? So again, it comes back to consumer education, and I don't think there could be enough of that.
Sure, that's great. Maybe even recipes inside that CSA box. I had another question about some threats. This was just, I happened to be in New Orleans this weekend. And on the menu, and this was a little strange for me because I have lived in California and Washington and Oregon, so you would never see this, was hydroponic lettuce. And I just thought, what's the story with hydroponic lettuce, and is this the new thing? What does that do to our organic farmers? Because now a hydroponic lab essentially is growing without any of the risks that you are incurring. And I had never seen this before. Can you talk about this and whether it's a threat to you?
I think the debate about hydroponics right now and organics is, people are very vocal on either side about it. Where we stand for our farm, you know, we're soil-based, and find that hydroponics are literally, there's no soil involved. It's all in water. and there's a lot of inputs that go into that system, where our approach to agriculture comes from a regenerative principles, where we're trying to build soil health because of the vast environmental benefits that come with that and the healthy food that can come out of that. And a huge part of that is trying to reduce our inputs on farm as much as possible, which is just very different from how hydroponics operate.
Thank you for farming the way you do and doing what you do.
Thank you. I wanted to know, Ms. Brin, if you wanted to say anything. I know that there are hydroponic farmers on St. Croix, and does that affect your organics competition, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, actually, right now, we work with a hydroponic farm to help supply our Farm to School program. We definitely support them, and we hope that they do well, but part of the trend of hydroponics and aquaponics is responding to less access to land. That's part of how the market is or how growers are responding, because we don't have the soil to work in anymore. We're now growing in buildings and trying to find wherever we can. It's just life trying to grow again. So there is a debate that is happening right now whether hydroponic can be considered organic. However, we're really just based in the soil. We really need our soils to do well. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to also let everyone know, part of her Ridge to Reef's education of consumers about new products is they have a once a month almost dinner where you can come and eat the products there. So I invite you all to come to the Virgin Islands, to St. Croix, and come to a slow-cooked dinner where you can see the hundreds of different crops that they have at Ridge to Reef. My good friend and buddy, Mr. Ted Yoho of Florida, you have 5 minutes, no more.
No more. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I'll go to the Virgin Islands with you to watch that stuff.
You're coming anyway, so you don't need that invitation,
That's
right?
great, thank you. I appreciate y'all being here. Mr. Pierson, I understand you're a Gator too?
I am. I hope we do well this Saturday against
We're going to do well. Anybody else out there, Gator?
Well, they should be.
Oh, man. Not everybody can get into Florida. We're proud of our school, and we're proud of IFAS and what it's done. And, you know, I appreciate y'all being here because you represent a sector of ag that has a remarkable amount of growth. And it amazes me when I go to my grocery store, you know, the organic section used to be real small. Now they're pushing out other stuff. And we want to make sure we maintain the integrity, not just of the organics, in different areas, you know, making sure people aren't bringing in counterfeit products, calling it organic. So we want to maintain that. But agriculture altogether, and hydroponics is amazing. It is a wave of the future. I remember going to Disney World when they first opened in Florida, and they had the hydroponic farms. And we've talked to several people that marry that to other forms of agriculture. And what we've seen is with the fish farms, the nutrients out of the fish farms are so rich that they can grow hydroponics that are more lucrative than the salmon. And so that is something that we're going to see. And as you pointed out very succinctly, it's very little land being used, and you're recycling a waste product that normally would go into the environment. So in this whole realm of thing, one of the questions, we've got to protect ag altogether because we're all in ag. And I've been associated with agriculture for 15 years. I'm a or since I was the age of 15, actually, since I was a baby, because I've been eating food. And I'm a large animal veterinarian, so I've been around that, the realm since I was about 15 years of age. And ag is something we have to protect in total. Organic, traditional, you know, hydroponics, all these things, and the ones coming out in the future. And one of the things that came up was last year an advertisement appeared in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure you're aware of it, displaying a list of quote unquote chemicals that would not appear in organic foods. One of these so-called chemicals, by the way, was genetically modified organisms, and had quotes around it like it was this blob out of a science fiction movie. And that's something we fought here because we spent a lot of money in our ag research universities, Florida, to do research on this, on the GMOs, but yet there's this negative connotation out there on the internet. And I know it's easy to, you know, it's kind of like in a political campaign. You can always pick up something negative and use it against your opponent. But we don't want to do it at the detriment of traditional farming, because we have the Nobel laureates, the hundreds, over 100 of them have come out and said their retrospective researches have found no problems with GMOs. So I think we need to work collectively together to keep agriculture strong, especially in this environment when the ag population in America is about 1% of the population and is shrinking because of the age. And so I hope we keep that in mind so that we don't go against that. One of the things I have for the committee as a whole, or the panel as a whole, is when I talk to organic producers and non-organic or traditional, I hear from the traditional side that I've got a guy that sells organic strawberries. He's got 10 acres, but he's selling about 50 acres worth of strawberries. What safeguards do we have to make sure people are going to play by the rules? And I know where there are people and there's money to be made, sometimes things get bent as far as integrity. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I'd just like to say that we take organic integrity extremely as a very high priority. If we'll talk about organic integrity for a minute, that's why we feel that the NOP should have a rigorous and effective method to police, if you want to use that word.
I think that's a good word.
To make sure that farmers are doing what they say they should be doing. The fact of the matter is, you know, I believe, my personal opinion is that human beings, being human beings, are going to be people, bad actors, both in conventional and organic, that want to exploit the rules and live in the gray areas. And that's why when we talk about OOL, we want to make sure that these areas are well-defined and well policed. And that's why we support also the organic.
I'm going to have to cut you off because the chairman said I had 5 minutes, and I don't want to make her mad. But I do appreciate that, and we'll follow up with you on some questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just to touch on what you were just discussing, Mr. Pierson, I know that for your organic cows, you rely on organic grain to feed those.
True.
The threat of fraudulent organic grain imports, do you think that the language from the 2018 Farm Bill is going to be beneficial or helpful to you all
I believe
in
it's taking a
ensuring
very
that
strong
doesn't
step
happen?
forward in helping with that. And yeah, that was a big problem. We went through what we called the gold rush in organic dairy in around 2015. And we definitely, and there was a shortage of organic grain produced in the United States and Canada at that time, and it opened up markets for foreign markets to come in. And we were very concerned about the organic integrity of those foreign markets. We expressed those concerns to the NOP, and the NOP has responded and taken effective steps to help control
Thank you.
that.
Mr. Yoho, you wanted to add something?
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of my questions. I didn't realize I rambled so long. I sit on foreign affairs too, and we deal a lot with China, and we know the ASF outbreak out there. China is shipping organic soybean over here, but they're drying them on the roads. And, you know, if they're in an agricultural sector in China, those pigs, I'm sure, around that area, or a truck goes through there that goes on that farm, we cannot afford to have ASF here, and we need to make sure that these feedstocks that are coming into this country are not tainted with that, and that's something I think we should have a future hearing on because it's vital to our national security. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Pengree, for your patience. Your 5 minutes, and I know that you've done so much work, and I rely on you quite a bit in the discussion and being a thought leader in the organic space. So looking forward to hearing your questioning.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody on this committee for all the good questions, but particularly thank you to all of you for both the work that you do and the really great conversation we've been having today. I've been interested in this area for a very long time. I've been an organic farmer and run a certified organic farm since sometime in the 1970s. So I go way back to the era where this was all kind of hippie Birkenstock and nobody, you know, thought it was a serious business. Now it's a, you know, $50 billion business, and it's been really wonderful to see, you know, the number of conventional farmers who've gotten new market opportunities, just all the great things that are going on, and so much of it is driven by all the things you've been talking about in conventional in consumers' interests in the marketplace. I'm also very well aware how hard it is to stay as a certified organic farmer. Those are really rigorous standards, and the issues you're bringing up about organic fraud, those concerns, cost of the inputs, challenges with land ownership, you've really covered a lot. The other thing I just want to quickly say is the role that all organic farmers play today in enhancing environmental practices, which we have so much concern about, carbon sequestration, which you do as a matter of practice, resilience, increasing your yield. I mean, there's so many good things going on that I think there's a new interest in learning more about as we, look at the changing climate. Just a couple things that I haven't heard come up that I want to talk about. So this whole issue of scale, there was a long time ago, a Secretary of Agriculture said, get bigger, get out, and small farmers were told there was no place for them. Then recently that came up again, is there any market for small dairy farmers? And what you really represent is an amazing range of scale. The other thing we hear about a lot is people say, like, organic is nice, but we could never grow enough, under these practices. So each of you can address this in a different way. Certainly, Mr. Huckaby, you've talked about being the largest carrot producer. You can't be any bigger than that. And to talk about carrots at scale, you're already there. And then, Ben, you're on the opposite side, but talking about supporting 4 people off of a relatively small farm that goes direct to consumer and has a market in that way. So, and then, of course, dairy farms are a constant question. So I'm just going to let you guys discuss it in your own way because it's such a difference, but it represents, what can be done out there.
Well, thank you for that. I would just comment to that we have taken organics, obviously, to scale that most people haven't been able to do, and a lot of it has to do with where we farm in California. It makes it a little easier than some of the other areas to farm. And we got in at a time, I've been doing it a little over 20 years, we got in at a time when organics was really taking off, and a lot of the mainstream consumers were starting to entertain buying organic, and so we got on at the right time and were able to kind of ride the wave. But as I travel around, and we farm now in 7 different states, and we deal with almost all the major retailers, it seems that there's opportunities from the smallest producer to large mainstream producers. But the one thing we've learned along the way is that you can't cut any corners. So we still farm every acre like we did when we had a 1/4 acre, and I still have plantings that are a 1/4 acre to a 1/2 an acre of dandelion greens and different things that we produce. But you cannot cut any corners in organics if you're going to have high quality, predictable yields, and that's what's helped, I think, propel the organic movement even more, is figuring out how to grow these things year-round with equally as good a quality or better than we have conventionally. So ever since we've kind of figured that out through the crop rotation and building our soils to where they need to be, the market has just taken off. And but I still see that there are opportunities for local. There's opportunities from the farmers market all the way up to the largest warehouse stores.
You want to talk about being small?
As far as scale in our industry, our co-op our mission is to support small family farms. And small is a relative term, and it's defined by each individual. But we have 1,800 dairy farmers. 95% of our milk is produced by herds with less than 100 cows. And the average size herd in our co-op is 72 cows. We still have hand milking Amish in our co-op. I was on the phone with a gentleman the other day from Iowa. He milks 20 cows by hand, and he called me to tell about some of the issues that he's having. And so, yeah, but that being said, I strongly feel, and the co-op strongly feels, that there's room for all different size operations in the organic dairy industry and in the organic industry, as long as we are all playing by the same set of rules. And we all have to have a level playing field on that. And so we're supportive on how a person wants to farm as long as they're performing with the NOP.
That's great. I've run out of time, so
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ben, because I know you have a lot to say, but you've already talked a little bit about the importance of having direct marketing and CSAs and dealing with families, which seem to be really important for the small farmer, and thank you for explaining that to us. And thank you, Madam Chair. I'm out of time.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Rodney Davis.
Thank you. Perfect timing.
Yeah, you do it all the time.
That's perfect. The pitfalls of multiple committee hearings at the same time.
But you have a system. You're a pro. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you, I make this comment often. She's doing a heck of a lot better job than the last chair.
That was him.
Now, Chair Plaskett, a good friend of mine, and I do apologize to the witnesses that I wasn't here to see your testimony. But I do want to ask a question of Mr. Huckaby. You know, you mentioned in your testimony the USDA organic program is the most highly regulated food system in the world. The organic industry is unique in that farmers and businesses want the program to have strict regulations and standards for the sector. Can you talk about why it's so important for your business to have strong and consistently enforced standards?
Sure, thank you. You know, I think as a farmer, most farmers want less regulations typically when they're out on the farm and farming, but with organics, for us to have a highly regulated sector that everyone has to follow the same standards, rules, and regulations, it's important to the consumer. The consumer wants to know exactly what they're getting. They want to know what practices were put in place, and they don't want it to differ from one state or one area versus the other. So to me, it's consumer-driven, that they want the confidence in what we produce and what we're allowed to produce, the time allowed between taking fields from conventional, converting them during the transition period to organics. There needs to be these standards that everyone follows the same rules so that we know that the end product is very similar throughout the nation. And I think that's extremely important from a consumer, from a marketing standpoint, that we differentiate ourselves from conventional. And we're a huge conventional farmer too. We do both, but there's different practices that we do under each one. And I think making the differentiations between the two is very important so that the consumer has a choice, but they know what they're getting when they decide to pay more for organic, that they know exactly what they're getting.
So you're right. I mean, it's the consumer. They want that label to mean something.
Absolutely.
And they're willing, as you just said, to pay a higher price for those products.
Yep.
And in turn, you have a higher cost of production, which gets you then a higher return to go with those higher costs, which provides that cost-benefit analysis to stay in that organic industry. What's the biggest threat to that label right now and the consistency within that label?
I actually think for us, the biggest threat is some of the foreign products that are being brought in that maybe haven't had quite the scrutiny and maybe the standards in the foreign countries that are being imported in that maybe don't, you know, or have a tendency not to play by the rules as much as here. We're very highly regulated. We're very highly monitored. The paperwork, the visits that we get regularly, especially the scale and size that we are, you know, and I would go back to, you know, fraudulent and some cheating maybe that happened. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years, and in the U.S., there's less and less of that. I don't look at that as a big problem in the U.S. of people maybe not following the rules. The enforcements are there, and every year we get better and less issues with maybe nobody, you know, not everyone being as truthful as they've been in the past.
Well, I mean, I want to work with you, and I know those of us on this subcommittee want to work with you in a bipartisan way to ensure that label remains consistent.
Thank you.
We tried to do the same with a GMO label just recently, a few years ago, because at some point customers, they need to know what the label means. Yep. And if you have no standards, you don't know what that means. You could have a label on a package,
Right.
but if you don't know what's behind that label, how do you know if it's just a marketing ploy
Right.
or if it actually has some standards behind it? I'm glad you mentioned the foreign import issue, but we got a demand and a supply problem here when it comes to organics, Mr. Huckaby. We're going to continue to see the demand for organic groceries and organic foods grow.
Yep.
How do we meet that demand? Can we do it without importing? What can we do as policymakers to help expand opportunities for those who want to be conventional and organic farmers like yourself?
Yeah. So I think one of the issues that is kind of a preventative measure for switching from conventional to the organic is the transition period of 3 years, which to me is a great period of time for you to rebuild your soil. And I'm a conventional farmer, but we know that our soils on conventional are not nearly as rich. Fumigants and things are hard on your soils. But to take that 3 years and transition everything and get the soils built up is a necessary step in order to get good organic production, but it takes a lot of money and, willing to sit out 3 years. And I think if there are some subsidy programs or things through USDA to try to stimulate more people to move over to organic, we've proven that you can get the same yield on organic that you can on conventional over and over again, but it takes time to build your soils, and it takes that window of opportunity that is lost, and somehow we're going to have to make up for that period and entice farmers to want to move to organic.
Thank you, Mr. Huckaby, and thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Panetta, your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this opportunity and appreciate you holding this hearing on such a very, very important topic, especially when it comes to where I represent the Central Coast of California. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jimmy Panetta, and I want to also thank you for your participation in this hearing and your preparation to be here and the fact that you are here. So thank you very much. I apologize that I missed your testimony, but I did read some of your testimony. And some of the things that you have to say I want to ask about. But I think there's sort of one issue that is sort of, I think, prevalent, and an issue that you, as well as many people in agriculture, agree that affects all of our production capabilities. Like I said, I come from the Central Coast. It's otherwise known, and many people of my peers know that I always say this, and I will continue to say this, as the salad bowl of the world. So, correct, Rodney? Thank you. Thank you. As I said, they know that, and now you do too. And I say that because we have a lot of crops, hundreds of specialty crops. That's what we, obviously, that's our number one thing, and our number one industry there. Conventional, and yes, definitely organic. In fact, we've had leaders in the organic history emanate out of the Central Coast, Santa Cruz, Mark Lipson in particular, who are just been stalwart champions of the organic vegetable industry. And so, but as we've gone forward from Mark and other leaders in that area, what we've seen is that, yes, there are a number of issues that you face in organics, with grants and crop insurance and research, but the number one issue, I believe, is labor. And we're hearing that not just on the Central Coast, but in the center of America, all the way to the East Coast. I think my good friend Rodney Davis and my good friend Ted Yoho would agree to that as well. And we obviously have heard that, and we have been working to fix that as well. In fact, this afternoon, Chairwoman Lofgren and Dan Newhouse from Washington and myself, as well as Mr. Carbajal sitting next to me, and a number of other Democrats and Republicans, and yes, T.J. Cox, thank you, T.J., didn't see you over there, are going to be introducing the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, a bill that not only protects our existing workforce, but makes it easier to have an enduring workforce here in this country. But I also know that it's going to take a lot more effort as we go forward. And it's going to take not only your contributions, but your information as to what you're saying about labor and how that's affecting your production. And so I know Mr. Brown and Mr. Huckaby, you spoke about the challenge of sourcing enough labor for your organic operations in your written testimony. And I would love to hear what you have to say on the importance of creating this type of stable workforce for your organic production, how important that is, and what the challenges you're facing as well.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're right. So thank you for that question. You nailed it. Immigration, labor, a solid labor pool is everything for us. We're fortunate that we in California, where we're at, have year-round work available, so we don't have the influx of needing several hundred people one day and then not, because our crops are always producing. And that stable workforce has helped us retain a lot of our employees. But that workforce is aging out, and we're having a tougher time replacing those workers. And so, and we're now farming in 7 different states. It's an issue in all 7 states that we face, the labor issue. And so in California, we do have a pretty decent supply of labor. Like I said, they are starting to age out, but we need to protect those workers that are there that have worked with us for so many years. And then we need to be able to get replacement workers for those as they age out and be able to continue to replenish the workforce that's there, that's willing to do the hands-on labor that's so much required in organics, the hand weeding, the cultivating of all these crops, the hand harvest of all of it. So it's extremely important, as well as in the southern states where we're farming with H-2A labor. It's important that we have a better process, a less cumbersome process to get those employees. So you were correct. The labor is probably the #1 issue we deal with in all 7 states that we farm.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, I would agree. In organic cotton production, I would think, well, I know that the reason why there's not more growers going to organic cotton production is because we don't have the labor to manually remove the weeds. I'm fortunate enough that we got a good team that comes in every year that I've been working with for the last 10 years, but it is one of those limiting factors is nobody wants to do it anymore, and it's a challenge.
Understood, and I can tell you, based on the bipartisan work that went into the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, it alleviates this and it addresses your problem. So thank you. I yield back, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Mr. T.J. Cox, your 5 minutes. I just want to thank you also for the testimony of one of your constituents who's here with us, and look forward to your questioning.
No, thank you very much, Chairwoman, and very pleased to take a point of pride that Mr. Huckaby and his operations are located in the 21st Congressional District, which is ostensibly the top agricultural district in the top agricultural state. And every time we pick up a carrot, we certainly think of you. And, I really did want to, thanks so much for your question, Mr. Panetta, that was one of the things that we did want to discuss is about how in both conventional and organic farming that labor is such an issue. We always hear about that, and this bill that will be introduced this afternoon directly goes towards those issues. It should be quite a bit of relief. So very excited to be able to introduce that. But with regard to organic farming, I would love to hear more, Mr. Whalen, about how some of the programs that were available through USDA and through state really helped you in order to initiate your operations and continue to develop those.
Yeah, thank you. We, since the beginning of starting our farm, we've benefited from federal programs, from the Organic Certification Cost Share Program, which we use every year at $750 of the $1,000 that we pay for certification. But one of the major programs that we have been from and continue to is the NRCS EQIP and AMA programs, which we've built in the process of building our 5th high tunnel for. And where we are in Maine, extending our growing seasons into the winter and starting earlier in the spring has allowed us to access markets and really generate income year-round for our business and our families. Similarly, the SARE research programs, we've partnered with UMaine Extension on 2 programs, one that looked at cover crop combinations and the effects on weed suppression and soil fertility. And we're currently just wrapping up another research program for tarping as a way to suppress cover crop and suppress weeds and increase soil fertility as well. And a huge part of being a young farmer as well, the BFR DP programming, we've worked specifically through MOFGA, our state certifier, for business training, winter business class that exposes to ideas of running a business that as farmers we had no idea about some of how QuickBooks operate, and how to run a successful and market our product. And also this past winter we worked with Maine Farmland Trust that offered a farming for wholesale program that gets funding through the BFRDP as well. That's really asking us to look at our business and figure out how we can scale it to a wholesale level for our local markets.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume that this type of funding is critical for you to be able to at least start what you were doing and to maintain operations?
It absolutely is. I think high tunnels are kind of the easiest example of something that as a small farm with limited funds, I don't know that we would have constructed those, and the benefit that we've gotten from adding those to our farm are tremendous. Like, I can't be overstated.
Oh, thank you very much. And Mr. Brown or Mr. Pierson, if you could add any color that you could provide?
On the USDA?
Yeah.
Yeah, we work with our NRCS local office, because as mentioned in my testimony, in our area, we had a lot of conservation reserve program land that was taken out and put it back into production. We work with them on trying to make sure that we still have conservation practices. We've utilized some of the EQIP funding that's helped, but the biggest challenge in production agriculture, no matter whether it's organic or non-organic, is our rise in input costs are just outrageous. From equipment to whatever, and then we bring in the labor issue that we have to deal with organic. And so anything that we can utilize through USDA is a benefit.
Well, great. Thanks so much. And certainly, as Mr. Davis pointed out, we all know is that organic, the demand for organic products is just growing not only here in the States, but throughout the globe. And Mr. Huckaby, can organic farming actually be scaled up to meet the world's growing demand?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I do believe it can, and I think we've proved that over the last 20 years. We've proven it by taking 45,000 acres out of conventional production and transitioning it out, and with the steps of cover cropping and diversity and composting, we now produce equally the same tonnage that we do conventionally, we do on organic. So it takes a while to get there. There are no shortcuts. You can't cut corners, and it's not an overnight fix, but with a long-term strategic plan, we feel like we can produce as many organic crops as we can conventionally.
Well, thank you so much. I do have more questions, but it looks like I'm out of time, so I will yield.
Thank you. Mr. Carbajal, your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for having this very important hearing, and welcome to all the witnesses today. I want to first start out by associating myself with Representative Panetta's comments. I think he characterized what's transpiring in a bipartisan way in a very, very eloquent way. And I happen to be a son of a farm worker, so when I hear farm workers are aging out, we now have a delta, we have a broken immigration system, we have a delta of need for more farm workers. Oftentimes when I meet with farmers, I say, you're absolutely right. We need to find ways to fix our system. Some children of farm workers actually go on to get an education, live that American dream. Some even become members of Congress. So I absolutely understand the need to continue to explore how we could create a more sustainable labor pool. Let me just say that my Central Coast district is one of two Central Coast districts. Obviously, Representative Panetta represents the other. I represent the Central Coast, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and a little bit of Ventura. And I got to tell you how excited I am to have Mr. Huckaby here, since he's a major investor in my district, and certainly appreciate his celebration of his 50 years of being in business as a company, Grimmway. I also appreciate that I think Mr. Huckaby has really distinguished himself by creating a blueprint for successful organic production, and really appreciate that he has chosen to invest in the 24th Congressional District and the most lovely Central Coast District. There are over 300 district-wide organic operations in the 24th Congressional District. Mr. Huckaby, you mentioned a very important point in your testimony, that the future of organics will depend on the federal government keeping pace with the marketplace. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? And share with us some examples that perhaps go to the heart of that issue.
Well, I think, and thank you, and once again, we appreciate all the support and everything that's going into this labor force and immigration and everything that we can do to protect our workers and bring more workers, and I know a lot of people are involved in that, and we look forward to better things to come. But, when we talk about the USDA, so our biggest concern on organic is that we have very strong, strict rules and regulations that differentiate organics from conventional. And, what we don't want to do is have multiple sectors, whether it's conventional and transitional and organic, and, you know, I think of regenerative as part of organic. So we need to make sure that we don't confuse the consumer. And the consumer, you know, they want to know what organic means, and they want to have this stamp of approval from the USDA that says this company has gone through and they are abiding by all the rules, so this product is free of certain chemicals. It's grown in accordance to certain standards, so they get the trust in the industry as well as the actual producer. So it's important that we have a very, very strict regulated industry. I think there are a lot of things out there with GMOs that, you know, the consumer are very concerned with, so they throw up red flags when people start talking about changing and modifying different organisms. But I think there's some technology out there that the USDA and the NOSB needs to continue to look at when it comes to selective breeding and things. I can't speak about it because I'm not in tune with that, but the government needs to make sure that they're really looking hard at new advances in all technology as we move forward. There's a lot of technology changing in production farming right now, and I just think we need to make sure that we've got the support with the government to really take and watch what is happening out there.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Whalen, I have very few seconds left, so the move of NIFA has been of great concern for many of my producers in my district and that have expressed concerns, and especially as it relates to supporting research programs with information and input on organic priorities. Can you share with me your thoughts on that?
I'm just basically anything that's limiting access to funds for research, especially on our farm right now. We're really trying to think about what are the practices that we can integrate at our scale that are going to help combat climate change, things like different selective breeds for seeds that are going to help be more resilient on the farm. Anything that's holding that funding up, I think, is a detriment to the organic industry. And I think figuring out ways to kind of overcome those more administrative hurdles would definitely help.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for testifying this morning and providing us with some incredible insight in the work that you are all doing in the organics field. I think that we've seen from the testimony from our witnesses that regardless of the scale, the crop, location, geography, that there are some huge opportunities that are available in the organic space. I believe that the 2018 Farm Bill really went a long way in supporting this market, but we still have a lot of work to do, specifically from some of the conversations that you've given us and the information you've given us, whether it's support, new entrants, supporting new entrants, foreign organics coming into the markets, and how we can continue to support this industry and make sure that it's available to additional individuals. So thank you all for being here. I want to remind everyone that although we have asked you questions and you've given those 5 minutes, I'm really appreciative of the longer testimony, the written testimony that you've provided for this committee and for the record. And then I just want everyone to know that under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 calendar days to receive any additional material and supplemental written responses from the witnesses to any questions posed by a member. This hearing of the Subcommittee on Biotechnology, Horticulture, Research is adjourned.